My name is Jane and I'm part of the customer service team here at Float. I'm also joined by Ashley, who's our customer service manager, and we're going to be running through a quick overview from our second webinar of our series, and then we're going to jump into a live demo to show you scenarios, daily breakdown tab, and the insights tab. So if you do have any questions as we're going along, you can pop them into the Q&A box, the chat box, and we'll get to those at the very end. Or if there's anything that you think of once the webinar is over, please do message us tomorrow. You can use the little icon in app, or you can email us. And there'll also be a recording of this webinar, which you'll get sent within 24 hours. There's also a lot of really helpful information on our help site and some good help videos, and our support team is always there to answer any questions that you have as well. So I'm going to pass you over to Ashley, who's going to start the demo.
Awesome. Thank you, Jane. So yeah, thank you so much for joining this afternoon's webinar. This is second in the series. So what I'll do is just start by a quick overview of what we kind of covered in the first webinar, and then we'll jump into a demo for the content within this one. So we've got kind of the tagline of taking your cash flow to the next level. So we're going to really show you, how to do that within your Float account. And we've also got, real-time cash flow competence, which is the underlying thing what, we at Float are really trying to provide. So what Float is a visual operational cash flow and forecasting management tool. I'm sure you've all jumped into your account, but if you haven't, this is a quick snapshot of what it looks like. So, what problem do we really solve? So you might, have some of these questions. When will my cash reserves run out? What if my client pays late? How much cash do we need to break even? When can I take money out of the business? So if these questions, are run through your head, or you've maybe had them throughout this year, especially this year, because it's been such an up and down year, then, you really, Float will really help you provide the answer to kind of help you guide yourself to answer these questions. So, what problem do we really solve with that? So you may have seen or still have a spreadsheet like this. I think it's super kind of clunky. My eyes are jotting around all over the page. I don't really know where to look. As we know, spreadsheets can be out of date very quickly, or if, you share it with a couple of people within the business, they can sometimes by accidentally be updated incorrectly or anything like that. So with Float, it's really clean cut and visually easy to understand what's going on. We show you key figures at the top that we want to draw your attention to, and we show you a very visual graph that helps you make informed decisions and help you answer those questions I had up before. Business owners who don't monitor their cash, quite frankly, put their business at risk just by not knowing what's going to happen next week, next month, next year. We've done a lot of research on this, and 81% of businesses that fail cite cash flow as one of the main reasons. So not seeing what's ahead means you can't properly plan for the future. One of the features that we're going to show you within the actual demo is scenarios and planning, what if situations. So that really helps you kind of plan for this kind of key question here. So just to recap on the first webinar, these are the four kind of top things that we'd recommend when you first log in, when you're trialing, or when you actually subscribe with Float. These four things will really help you get into an accurate place with your cash flow. So the top one is making sure your reconciled or unmatched items are up to date. If these aren't up to date, then it can really skew your cash flow and not be a good place to work from. So depending on how often or how many transactions you have coming in and out of your business, it's a good idea to get into a good habit of reconciling on a regular basis. Oh, sorry if you can hear that pinging of my Google Calendar. Then secondly, we double check the bank accounts being included. We want to make sure that you have all the correct accounts that you have that you want to be pulled through. So make sure you don't have your savings account if you don't want it, and double check your credit cards. Depending on how you have them set up within your accounting platform, you might not want them included in your cash flow as well. Next thing is to update your invoices and bills. Similar to the reconciliation, it just makes sure that your cash is in a really accurate place. We at Float use the expected date. So if your bills or invoices are past their expected date, then we drag them all to today's date because we just don't have any information as to when they'll land. So if you have got lots of invoices or bills that are overdue past their expected date, then that can really, again, skew your cash flow. So it's important to kind of keep that up to date. And finally, create your budgets. So budgets are placeholders for cash that might come in or might leave the business. And you can really use these placeholders to kind of pack out your cash flow to kind of pad it out and see what you're doing. So those are the top 4 things that we recommend that you do, first when you're signing up, but also, try and get into a habit of when you do log on to check these things, and that will get you in an accurate place. Just before we jump into the demo, I wanted to show you quickly some reviews that we've had from customers. If you have been using Float for a while, please do jump on to one of our, oh, my slides keep dashing about. Please do jump onto one of our review platforms. You can get them directly on the website. We love hearing about, how you're experiencing Float and get your feedback on there. So please do jump on and leave us a review. And these are a few of the awards that we've won over the years, super lucky. So if you have got any time and you want to get some more information on this, there's some on our website. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is jump into my demo account. And I'm going to show you a little bit more about scenarios. So as I mentioned, your budgets are going to be, the first budgets that you kind of pack out will be in your base layer here. And anything you think, I always say anything you think is like 80% more or more secure that it's going to happen, I would pop it in your base layer. And then anything else that is less than 80% sure, I would create a scenario layer for it. The reason being is because your base layer is a more accurate representation of what your cash is doing, and your scenario layers are those places where you can play around and answer those questions, like when will my cash run, reserves run out, or how am I going to pay my staff this month, or anything like that. You can play around within your scenario layers. So how to do that is you've got your scenario here, and you can see I've got 2 layers already built here. But to add a layer, you would go to add scenario layer, and you can pop in any name you want, color coordinate it if you want, pick a color, and then this is built on top of your base layer here. And we've also got a nice little video to watch here if you want. So that's how you'd create your actual scenario layer. But because I have 2 already made up, I can jump in and show you these just now. So I've done a positive and a negative one. So I'll show you first of all the positive one, gaining a large sale. So in this example, I've gone super, super simple just to show you exactly how it works. But as you can see here, I've got it saved as a green color. So you can see clearly how it differs from my base layer because I've added in additional, gaining that large sale. So how I did that was if I go down to sales, you can see if I don't go over there, actually, you can see there's like a green tint to that bar. So I know that I've actioned upon something in there. And I know as well that I'm in my scenario layer because any, cell that I go over has a green bar around it. So I know I am in my scenario layer. So if I click in here, you'll see this is me gaining a large sale. So I've called this sales X, very dramatic. This is my big sale that's coming in, and it's going to be worth £10,000. So because I've added that on top of my actual sales that I know are steady and coming in, that's why my my trajectory is going up as such month to month. So you can see how you can kind of build on that. If I wanted to pad this out more, for example, I would maybe have to accommodate for the large sale, I would maybe have had to do more advertising and marketing. So maybe we'd add budget in here. I would maybe even have to have more staff, to accommodate for the larger sale. So I could add that into my staff line, my pay line. You might have to purchase more items to accommodate for this. So you can really see how you can start to pad that out and see how it affects everything down the line. Something that's neat as well is if I go back in here, you can see if I go along here, move to base. So if I hit that, it would drag that budget into my base layer. So actually, if my, imagine, if this what if situation does become reality and I do manage to secure sales X, then I can move it into my base. And it means that I don't need to kind of double entry into my base layer. I can move it in and become reality into my base layer. So you've got that option there. So let's look at a different situation. So unfortunately, I might be losing a customer. So if I look at this here, you'll see how different that is along the graph month to month here. So if we scroll down again, you can see it's got an orange tint to it now. So you can see that that's been affected. So if we go in here, you can see now I've because it's been built upon my base, I'm losing sales A from my base. So you can see it's almost £8,000, and that's really affected my trajectory going along compared to my base. If I unclick here, you can see what's happening there month to month. Just how one simple sale, losing that customer, how it affects. So again, you could really pad that out. And you could, because you're losing a sale, you might want to reconfigure and market, or do your advertising in different locations or up your spending. So again, you would add in your additional budgets to really pad that out to how it would look in real life. So yeah, that's a super quick kind of examples of what your scenarios could be. You can really play around with these. And you can delete them, if you are finished with them and you want to move on to something else. So you can just kind of go in here and delete them if you want, or you can update the name, change the color, and really kind of play around and configure them to however you want. They don't need to stay stagnant once they've been designed. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do now is actually pass you over to Jane. And I think Jane's going to go over the daily breakdown in the Insights tab. So yeah, I'll stop sharing and I'll let you share your screen, Jane.
Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, just quickly share my screen,
Awesome.
which will show the exact same demo account. There we go. Right, so I'm just going to jump into the daily breakdown. And if you are looking to keep a close eye on your cash, the daily breakdown tab is a great place to start. You can set a date range here. So some of our users actually use it as a means of seeing week to week on your cash flow. So I'm just going to set this. Okay, so we've got the 15th, and I'll just set it to the end of the month. So this will now just show all the transactions that I've got coming through until the end of the month. So the layout here is slightly different from the main cash flow, and the transactions are broken out to show you exactly what's happening over the date range. So it takes the information and it lays it out chronologically, and it'll show a list of all your incomings, your outgoings, and how that affects your bank balance. If you scroll down, you'll often see budget remaining, and this is because of the way budgets work in Float, because they're like placeholders, like empty buckets. And if you haven't spent all your budget, then you'll see what is remaining here. So for example, if I click into remaining budget for Christmas here, so being quite generous, we've allocated £2,000, but thanks to COVID, we're not going to be able to spend any of that. So that is showing as still remaining in our cash flow. But it will allow you just to quickly go in here, and you could actually ignore that budget and it will remove it from your daily breakdown. So it accesses a lot of the same information that you find elsewhere in Float, but it just lays it out all in order here. So that's pretty much the daily breakdown. If you look up here, you can actually choose to view a scenario in particular rather than just the base. And if you just wanted to see your actuals, you can toggle off any budgets as well, and it'll just show you your actuals coming through. So you won't see any remaining budgets, that type of thing. Okay, there isn't an option to export the daily breakdown at the moment. However, the table that we use to display it will hold all formatting if it's copied and pasted into a spreadsheet. So all you would need to do is sort of highlight everything, and you should be able to then copy and paste it directly into a spreadsheet in the same table format. So that's always a good little tip as well. So moving over to our insight section, this is still quite a new area of Float, and we're hoping to add to it as we go along, but I'll just quickly run through some of the main ones. Accounts to watch out for: cash in and cash out. They work in both exactly the same way. So I'll just show you one of these, and it allows you to kind of dig in to any areas where you might be over or under your budgets here, or anything out. So we've got advertising and marketing here. We can see that we were over last month, so that might be something we want to look at. And again, you can jump into areas there. So that's quite a good little insight to use. And I'm just going to go back. One of the main ones that I like to use is our budget variance. And once your account's been running for several months and you've got the historic figures, this is quite a good one. Because our demo account hasn't been running very long, we don't have a huge amount of figures here. But again, it'll show you the difference between your actual and your budget. So you can quickly see at a glance, should be in this final column here, where you've been out. And again, you can click in. Everything is pretty much clickable in Float, and you'll be able to click into your sales line in this case and just see exactly what's happened. So I can see all my expected amounts here, and I can see all my budgets here. So just going back, click back again. Scenario comparison, since Ashley's just covered scenarios, this is quite a handy one. If you actually have multiple scenarios and you want to see them all on the graph, you can do that. You can add as few or as many as you wish. You could add all your scenarios if you have lots, and it's a good way of just seeing how they compare. And again, hovering over the graph will show you that expected end of day balance, which can be quite useful. Again, you can set a date range. And this one is actually exportable, so it'll export to PNG and then you can paste it into a report if you wish. So that's the scenario comparison. Let's see what else we've got. Overall cash in versus cash out. Again, quite handy insight. You can select various options here to include or exclude. And you can also export this chart, so it's a good one. Hovering over the bars will show you a breakdown. You can set a date range. And yep, and also select a scenario as well. So you can look at your base or you can look at a particular scenario. So that's quite a handy one there. And I think we just have one final one to cover, which is the account deep dive. And if you do have a very busy account with lots of things going in and out of it, I'll use our sales account as an example here. You can dive straight into it and it'll show everything laid out. It's a good way of kind of moving between months for just one category as well. So you can get a granular view for that particular category, which is quite handy. There we go. Just quickly showing you that there. Right, so that's basically our Insights tab. I think the other thing we were going to cover was if there are some specifics between the accounting platforms. So depending on whether you use Xero or whether you use QuickBooks, there's a few things that you can do and some that you can't do in others. So I'll just quickly cover those today for you as well. So Xero customers, you're quite lucky because Xero do give us a lot of information in their API, and you do have the option, if I nip into company settings, we have our demo account set to Xero, so it's easy to show you this one. We do have the option to pull in draft invoices and bills and repeating invoices and bills, which is really handy. So if you do have an invoice that repeats, you don't have to allow for that as a budget. You can actually pull the invoice through and Float will show each repeat of that invoice, which is really handy. Unfortunately, with QuickBooks, Intuit don't make that information available in their API quite yet. But if that does change, we will work very hard to get that to you pretty quickly. But that's a good insight to use. Okay, now manual journals. You do have the option to pull these through. It's disabled initially, but if you wanted to toggle that on, it will then pull through any journals. So cash journals will create a cash impact, and it will pull through non-cash journals, but that's going to have a zero cash impact on Float, as both sides of the journal will show in the cash flow netting to zero. For the cash journals, we only show one side of the journal, and that's what creates the cash impact. So that's pretty much those. The other thing that you can do with QuickBooks, we do have access to any of the budgets that you set in QuickBooks, and you can actually pull these in and have them displayed in the cash flow, whereas with Xero, we only have access to the overall budget from Xero. So that's the only one that we can pull through there. And I think probably that's the only other difference apart from credit cards, which we did mention in our last webinar. If you're a QuickBooks user and you want to have your credit card included, the payment to that credit card must be processed as a transfer. That's the only other thing to mention. So I think that was everything. I don't know if we have any questions coming through or anything else you want to cover, Ashley.
No, I think you covered most things there. I think there's one question, I think you maybe already covered it. It's just, can you make the daily breakdown into a weekly breakdown? So I think in the tab you can select the date range in there, yeah.
Yes, you can easily select your date range there. So you could just have the 1 week showing. So we can do it to the 22nd, and that will just show a week's worth of transactions there. Yeah, we have talked about doing a weekly chart view on the main cash flow page, but it's not in development as yet. So everything will just show monthly on your main table.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think you know, in the interest of keeping this under half an hour, I think we're kind of we've covered most things there. So, and there's no more questions, I don't think. Well, maybe we'll leave a few more minutes for questions to come. So I know it's like, you know, you can't, you're like typing or thinking of something to put in there. We will be on the support, which is the bottom right icon. We'll be on support for you know, the next hour after the webinar as well, if you have got some kind of question you want to add in there. So just to summarize real quick, if anybody is putting together a question. Today we went through scenarios where you can play around with those what if situations. So, you know, any of those niggly questions that you kind of want to really dive into and get a bit more detail on, to get a bit more clear vision on what your business is going to be doing next week, next year, or next month, then you can, you know, play around with scenarios to do that. We also looked at the daily breakdown tab, where you can get far more, you know, granularity than in the cash flow tab, and really get into the nitty gritty of what your cash is doing day to day. And we looked at the insight tab. So as it sounds, you know, providing lots of different insights in, from different kind of aspects of your cash flow, and some quite neat reports that you can kind of print off there as well. So yeah, always worth a poke around within the insights tab to see, you know, what's going on there. You will be sent, like Jane mentioned at the start, a recording of the webinar, so you can always watch it back in your own time. And as I mentioned, this is a series. So I think just because it's coming to the end of the year, the next in the series won't be till to next year now, which sounds absolutely bonkers that I'm saying that. But the next one will be next year, and we'll send out invites for that. So you're more than welcome to come along to that as well. I've been kind of waffling around, Jane, and there's no more questions coming in. So I think that might be it for today. Like I say, we're on support if you have any questions that pop up, you know, after the webinar.
That's great. Thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.